Wednesday on a jam-packed daily delivery podcast. I am Michael Rand. Hope you guys are all having a great day out there today. And like I said, great show. Lots to get to today. 3 different guests. I can't remember the last time I had 3 different guests, but that is the time of year it is. That is the necessity of getting to a lot of different things. Randy Johnson from the Star Tribune will join me here in just a little bit to talk Gopher football. Controversy at the end of that Michigan game, the onside kick that was called back because of a phantom offsides. Big Ten changes the rules on how they're going to officiate onside kicks 2 days later, saying, hey, yeah, that was too close to call. I got a bunch of Michigan fans like chirping me in the Twitter mentions saying a Gopher touched it illegally less than 10 yards from the line of scrimmage. I don't think that guy actually touched it. It was close. I don't think it actually hit his leg. That ball did not change directions. It just kept going. If it would have hit him, it would have stopped. So I don't think that actually hit that Gopher player right before the boundary of 10 yards. So anyway, beside the point, the bigger point is what got called was an offside that probably shouldn't have been called. And Randy and I will get into that here in just a little bit. Jon Marthaler joins me to talk Minnesota United soccer. The Loons are on a roll. Kelvin Yeboah has been a revelation since coming over in the latest transfer window. So Jon and I will talk about his impact as well as where the Loons sit in the playoff table. Chip Scoggins joins me too to talk about his Football Across Minnesota feature on Randy Shaver and the impact he continues to have on high school sports, even in his quote-unquote retirement. So Chip and I will talk about that as well as talk about the game balls he gave out this week. Plenty of them to go around, football in full swing. Get to some twin stuff here in a minute, a Vikings thought at the end of the show. First, though, what did I miss? Have to start with the Lynx today. 77-70 win over Connecticut. A very playoff game. And here's the thing. I was keeping an eye on it, watching it before I went to bed. It wasn't like that late, but they got like a 13-point lead with about 8 minutes left, and it was like 10 o'clock, and I was like, I'm tired. It was a long day. You know, Tuesdays are always long. Every day that ends in a Y is pretty long these days. And I was like, okay, this is a team where I'm like, I know even if I go to bed right now, I'm going to wake up in the morning and they are going to have won this game. I mean, and I know like most teams should be able to close out a 13-point lead with 8 to play, right? In basketball. That's a pretty safe lead, but it's not an insurmountable lead. But I trust the Lynx probably more than any other team in this market that if I go to bed when they are ahead by a seemingly comfortable but not like an insurmountable margin, that when I wake up in the morning, I am going to see that they won. And I said that to myself. I'm like, 13-point lead, 8 minutes left. Not like it's automatic, but I was like, they've got this one. I'm going to wake up in the morning and find out exactly what happened to finish this off so I can talk about it. And indeed, a great bounce-back win after they lost Game 1. This is going to be probably a 5-game series, don't you think? It's 1-1 now, going back to Connecticut for Games 3 and 4. 4 will be, of course, if necessary, pending, whoever wins Game 3 will have a chance to close it out in Game 4. But this just feels like the kind of series that is destined to go 5, that is destined to come back here for a Game 5. 2 evenly matched teams, 2 teams that are very much interested in defeating each other. 2 teams that play hard-nosed, aggressive basketball, especially here in the postseason. The Lynx shot 42% from three-point range. That was probably the difference in this game. They made enough shots to overcome, some of the rest of the offensive deficiencies. Connecticut was just 5 of 20, so the Lynx probably need a little bit more 2-point efficiency going forward. They only shot 20 for 43 from 2-point range. Not bad, but going to have to get a little bit more efficient from 2-point range. Going to have to get more from Nafisa Collier from the scoring column. She was great aside from the shooting. She was just 3 of 14. So to win a game when your best player, their MVP runner-up, shoots 3 of 14, scores just 9 points, that's impressive. She still had 12 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 blocked shots. She had a steal. She does it all, even when her shot isn't falling. Played all 40 minutes of the game as well. tightening up the rotation, tightening up the bench. Maisha Hines-Allen was huge off the bench, 15 minutes, a plus 11 in those 15 minutes, and had 7 points, providing them with some of that hard-nosed defense they need. Courtney Williams had a big second half. She had 15 of her 17 in the second half. So just one of those games where, it wasn't predictable, but you kind of had a feeling the Lynx were definitely going to be the more desperate team. They played like it. Both teams played really, really hard, though. Like, this is just going to be a classic series, it feels like. All these games feel like they're going to be close. Whoever loses Game 3 is going to have that desperation edge in Game 4, and then watch out for whatever happens, I'm guessing, in a Game 5. Baseball playoffs, by the way, started on Tuesday night. A lot of games. Detroit, Kansas City both winning. Detroit beats Houston. Kansas City beats Baltimore. Both those two teams having to go on the road to do that. Mets beat the Brewers. Padres beat Atlanta. So those were the 4 games that you saw on Tuesday. Interesting to see all the American League teams, all the American League Central teams getting it done in these games. Pretty impressive from Detroit and Kansas City. Kansas City winning 1-0. Detroit winning 3-1. Some excellent pitching. You just look at it, you're like, man, the Twins should be in this. The Twins should be in the playoffs right now, competing right along with these other teams. Just this historic collapse leaves a hole right now. It's like, there should be October baseball. There should be playoff baseball happening, for the Twins. Not necessarily, a home game right now, but soon there should be a home game if they would advance in this round. They should be getting the opportunity to do that, and they just aren't. Now, the reasons for that are varied. The reasons they have probably decided, at least according to their actions so far, is that the hitting fell apart down the stretch. According to a report from The Athletic, David Popkins, the lead hitting coach, has been let go. One of his assistants let go as well. Those are the only personnel kind of major moves we've been told about so far. Derek Falvey staying, Rocco Baldelli staying. Of course, the Pohlads aren't firing themselves, so I don't know if that's enough. I feel like that might be misdirected right now, right? The hitting, yeah, it wasn't great down the stretch, but they were still a top 10 team in runs scored, still a top 10 team in some of the other more advanced metrics that you would look at. They had a tough stretch, yes, absolutely. Maybe you can look at it and say, yeah, the offensive side, they had more personnel than the pitching staff had, and the pitching staff fell apart more because of injuries, because of inexperience, and the offense fell apart because they had a poor approach down the stretch. I would buy that. I don't know if that's on the hitting coaches, though. Like, Carlos Correa has talked glowingly of David Popkins. Like, I think this is a guy who has helped them. They had a good offense last year, too. I think this is a little misguided. Like, you can't fire all the players. You can't fire... you could fire Rocco, you could fire Derek Falvey, but they decided to make a secondary move. Feels a little scapegoaty to me. Lavelle O'Neal III and I will probably get into this more on Thursday's show when we get into our daily delivery debate. Certain to be a Twins topic on that. I don't know about this move. Yeah, something had to happen. I don't know if this was the thing that they should have done.
Let's talk college football with Gophers football reporter Randy Johnson on today's daily delivery. Randy, how are you?
Oh, doing good. Busy time of year with all the football going on, and it's just a fun time.
Well, the only thing anybody's wanted to talk about all week in a close Gopher-Michigan game was this play.
Bounce, scrambled around. Minnesota's got it. The Gophers have it. They've got it. But a flag on the play.
But a flag on the play, and that became the controversy. Matt Kingsbury, if he was offside, it was by about a millimeter. The Big Ten comes out and says Monday, not so much that it should have been a flag. Yeah. They changed the procedure for how they're going to do this going forward, Randy. But so I'm looking for when did they replay the end of that game? Can you remind me?
When did they?
When did they get to replay? When did they go back to the spot and replay it? Now that
I wouldn't get you there. Yeah, that's I'm sure that's what BJ Fleck and the Gophers would like to have happen, and then the fan base too. Because they had every they had momentum going their way. They would have gotten the ball at the basically 37-38. You're just on the edge of field goal range or in field goal range if he's accurate. Basically, the way they're going, do they go ahead and get a touchdown? I'm not so sure they wouldn't have. It would have been a chance to have one of the most memorable comebacks in Gophers history in at least the last few decades.
Where are they at kind of emotionally from that one? Because you lose that opportunity. And again, they're a very good team. They've always prided themselves on to the next one kind of stuff. But that one has to linger for a while, even a few days later. Yeah,
I'm sure it's going to sit there. I got the sense that they felt pretty good about the fact that they got it after being down 21-0 and then 24-3 going into the fourth quarter, that they got the game to within that. But obviously they wanted to win the thing. They've got something to fall back on going forward.
Yeah, they do. At least there's that. But this is not. We're not in the moral victory territory. You got to have real victories here, and that would have been that. Let's face it, that would have been a big one. I don't think this is a great Michigan team. I think they're a little bit one-dimensional at this point. But that still would have been a signature road victory against the number 12 ranked team in the country at the time.
Yeah, and you take them any way you can get them right now if you're the Gophers.
So they come out and they say we're changing the procedure. They're going to have 2 officials on the 35 now instead of 1. Is that basically the upshot of what the Big Ten said Monday?
Yeah, basically the umpire was the one that made the call, and he's not usually on the line, so they're going to have people that are usually on the line there. There were a lot of things in that game where the Gophers weren't too happy about certain procedural elements of the officiating, but that one was the one that really took the cake.
So they lose that game, of course. So they're 2-3 on the season now. 2 losses in the Big Ten already. USC up next on the schedule. That said, like you said, no moral victories, but did something to build on when you can come back like that and at least put yourself in position to win. What did they like in particular about the finish that they had, aside from the call that they didn't get?
Yeah, I think they like what they got out of their passing game. Max Brosmer had a solid second half. He's definitely spread the ball around a lot. Darius Taylor had 10 catches. Daniel Jackson, incredible touchdown catch, probably the best he's ever had. Contorting his body, reaching around, catching to the left hand and getting his feet in bounds, and it had to be overturned. They originally ruled it out of bounds, so he's doing well. Elijah Spencer's moving into a pretty good, reliable receiver too. I think that passing game is something that they're going to be leaning on quite a bit. The running game still hasn't gotten going the way they would like it. A little bit better. They had some good showings the second half where they were able to sustain some drives. So, they should feel good about that. They lost the game. That's the tough part. Too many mistakes in the first half.
They haven't really put together a full game, right, against a good team. And that's the offense, the passing game. North Carolina, they were pretty flat in the first half, at least early on. They got a little bit better in the second half for sure at some moments. Iowa, they had great second quarter. They're up 14-7-0 in the second half. Again, Michigan, kind of the opposite. You start out slow, but then you get yourself into a spot where you almost come all the way back. How do they extend this passing game to a 4-quarter game?
You just have to be consistent. Just finding the consistency, making the little plays, being accurate with the passing for the full game for Max Brosmer. And catching the ball. That they've had some problems with drops earlier in the season. That's part of it. I think too it'll help. I'm guessing they'll get Jameson Gears, tight end, back this week. He missed last week's game. He had been pretty much somebody who was making an impact in the previous 2 games. So it'd be good to have him back there.
Michigan again stressed Minnesota's run defense. How do you feel like they came out in that regard? Because that had been a struggle coming in. Yeah,
there was that 27-yard run by Mullings in the first quarter. That was he was untouched. So that's a spot where it's you want better than that from your defense. Second half, they did a better job at that. Michigan did kind of go into a bit of a slow it down. They wanted to get longer drives. They got one to start the third quarter that went for about 7.5 minutes, and they got a field goal to go up 24-3. When they got their second field goal second half, that was like about 450 drive. So there were a couple times where the Gophers, if they get one more stop, maybe it's not a 27, maybe it's still at 24. So it's they could have used one more stop in either of those drives.
Spinning forward to USC, like I said, you got to kind of turn the page quickly. It's another good team. I mean, it's not a lot of easy games on the schedule, like we've talked about. How do we kind of sort out how they could fare against USC, knowing how they played against Michigan? Yeah,
and it's a whole totally different offense than what Michigan had. Michigan beat USC by that same 27-24 score week before in the Big House. Basically, with Miller Moss, the quarterback at USC, is going to pass the ball. They have a lot of good athletic receivers. They can move it down the field. Gophers, they'll be tested in different ways than they have a lot of the time this year. It's been the opponent's run game that's given the Gophers problems. Now they're going to go against one of the better passers in the country. It's going to be interesting. Hopefully for them, they would get Justin Wally back, the cornerback. He's missed the last 2 games. He could be a difference maker back there if he returns. It's the other thing that's stood out was last week was they're not afraid to use Coy Parrish in the return game, and that punt return, that he had that was a game changer. He got a 60-yarder and set up a touchdown, and that's something something that flips the field like that. That can make a huge difference in games like these.
Yeah, it absolutely can. And you've seen it across college football. It's still kind of rare to see guys that young contributing. But my goodness, the Alabama wide receiver, the 17-year-old, he was making spectacular catches. That one play he made, on the sideline, juking 2. I've not seen a play like that for a long time.
Yeah, that was a very impressive.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, Coy Parrish gives them some hope, some possibilities here. But do you feel like this is a game where? I mean, they're not going to. I mean, they're certainly not favored, but it's at least a possibility. And do they need one at this point, or do you feel like they're still in kind of figuring themselves out phase?
Oh, I think it's time that they need one. It's basically This is probably this is one you. I'm not saying they're favored. They're definitely not favored to win, and they probably don't match up perfectly against USC's athletes, but you got to make a stand somewhere, and at home is where to do it this time. It's you just finished a pretty good showing at Michigan. You really need to build off that.
Well, we'll see if they can do it Saturday. Randy, appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you again next week.
Appreciate it, Mike. We'll see you.
Great stuff from Randy. My apologies to him for catching him off guard with my tongue-in-cheek musing that they're going to restart the game at a certain point. He's like, "What are you talking about?" Oh, I get it now. Big one against USC. I think he's right though. That one, you got to start winning at a certain point. You can't just have you can't feel sorry for yourself about the Michigan game, and you cannot continue to build on moral victories. Moral victories are nice for maybe showing some progress, but this team should be beyond that based on where this program was just a couple of years ago. Let's shift gears now to a different kind of football.
Let's talk soccer on today's podcast with Jon Marthaler. Jon, how are you doing?
Not too bad. How you? The daily delivery banner in the background now. This is getting serious.
Not everybody can see that. I got daily delivery banner, and I got Fargo Rock City. Got to represent.
That's right.
Book on the shelf, not a sports book, but Chuck Klosterman book.
We don't like to remember that you're from North Dakota. If we have,
you
try to remember it, but we try not to remember.
You try not to. I got to admit, Jon, I've been paying less attention to the loons than I probably should. My only excuse is that, man, it's been a pretty busy. It was a pretty busy September.
I don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing else going on in Minnesota sports right now.
I gotta say,
there are no other stories.
Maybe if the Vikings weren't a sudden Super Bowl contender with everyone's favorite quarterback except yours, Sam Bradford.
It's a little early for the touchdown dances, everybody. Just let's slow it down a little bit.
He's been really good. Anyway, he's been really good so far, but
the offensive line has been really good.
Everybody's been really good.
The offensive line has been really good.
It has. I'm on record saying this is the best line since 2009, but I also think Jones and Darnold get some credit. They're all helping each other, John. Can't you just let them help each other?
It's a whole team effort.
Yes,
and the Loons have been on to talk Vikings. This is great.
The Loons have been having a whole team effort too. Although I would dare say, Calvin Yeboah is kind of the Sam Darnold of the Loons, doing it all himself.
A lot of people are saying that.
Many people have
see people who have split Yeboah Darnold jerseys so that they can wear it to both things. It's happening a lot. You see it more and more.
7 goals in 6 games, though. That's quite an impact for the guy who came in, one of the many who came in during that last transfer window.
Yeah, there was a stat that went out last weekend. I think he's the 4th guy in league history to score in 5 of his first 6 games in the league, which, there's a lot of words in that statement, so it's maybe not as impressive. But at any point during any season, 7 goals in 6 games is an amazing run. And to do it in your first 6 games in MLS is something you don't see very much.
I saw one of his goals in their most recent wins. It's basically just a kind of a clinical finish, right? He just gets the ball. It's 15 yards out, just turns and rifles a shot kind of through a defender's legs, almost uses him as a screen, just beats the goalie clean. It's just this is a guy who knows how to score goals, clearly. Yeah,
it was one of those goals that you see it happen and you think, why aren't there more goals in soccer? Honestly, it seems very easy to score goals, as it turns out. So. Right. It just he knows how to finish. He knows where the goal is, and I think every striker talks about confidence, and your confidence doesn't get much higher than when you've got 7 in your first 6 games in a new city.
Obviously, changing the trajectory for the Loons. They had great start to the year, and then a whole bunch of problems as the international play kind of drew a lot of their players away. They had some injuries, but now they've got these reinforcements from the transfer window, picking things up again, virtually assured of at least making the play-in game now. MLS goes 9 deep in the playoffs, 8 versus 9 in a kind of opener. They're 8th right now, so they would host that, but still a chance even for them to get up into the top 7 and avoid that entirely.
Yeah, basically it is... They're basically in the playoffs. They're not in the playoffs. It's not mathematically clinched, but for them to miss the playoffs, they would require Dallas to win 3 games in a row, which is not going to happen. So they basically can look at this and say, all right, can they avoid that play-in game? Can they avoid that wild card? And as much as anything, if they can get out of the wild card, it means they won't have to play the LA Galaxy in the first round of the playoffs, even if they do win the wild card, which is a hard thing to do right now. So they're playing for seeding, and they're trying to climb up the standings right now. And it's not necessarily where they thought they might be after a summer that was a total disaster. So they've really recovered, and now they're becoming that vaunted team that no one wants to play in the playoffs.
I would imagine so. I mean, aside from, we talked about Yeboah already, it's not just him. They seem to be kind of rounding into the team they hoped they would be a little bit sooner than this.
Yeah, they really have looked good this year when they've had a whole squad of players to choose from. And then there was that summer where they had guys in international tournaments. They also had a bunch of guys who were hurt. It was kind of sort of a first team plus part of a second team that they were playing. And they said all the right things, and they said positive things. We really want these second guys to develop and get some time, and this is a great opportunity. But it's the same as like a baseball team that's got half a AAA lineup that's up, or the Twins with their current pitching staff. It's not what you want.
Not current anymore for the Twins. We can speak of them in the past tense.
It's not what they want. It's not what anybody wants to happen. So you can see all the good things you want. It was now not the squad they wanted in the summer. They made a bunch of signings in the summer. They got guys back healthy. They got guys who were playing in international tournaments back for the stretch run, and now they look like world beaters again.
Now we'll stay with the focus on this year for a minute. Proverbial team nobody wants to play, and let's be realistic. Like, if assuming they get, they're going to get into the playoffs, can this team make a run with the way they're playing right now, considering how well they're playing, but also they're going to have to play really good teams because of their seed right now.
Yeah, for the much of the year, it's been looking like there were 2 teams that were sort of set apart in the Western Conference. It was the Galaxy and then LAFC. LAFC has kind of had some struggles lately. And so it's looking a little bit more, to me at least, like there's the Galaxy and then there's a whole bunch of other teams that are about the same. And so I think just getting into the playoff mix this year, it'll depend on which team is playing well and which team is healthy and which team has got all those pieces in place and moving in the right direction, like the Loons do right now, to identify a playoff favorite or teams that are going to be dangerous in the playoffs. I think there's some other squads like Houston's dealing with some injury problems and stuff like that, while they might finish above Minnesota in the standings, I don't think they would necessarily be the favorite in the playoff series between those two.
So remind me, we know the 8-9, then you get down to 8. What's the format now for the postseason?
The format after that is in the first round, they play best of 3 series now.
Okay,
so
that seems fair. Okay.
It's kind of a whirlwind where there's a lot of they play on a Monday and then play on a Friday again, or play on a Monday or a Saturday. And the schedule's all wonky because they're trying to get as many games on TV as possible, because that's why they have a best of 3 in the first place, is to get as many games for Apple TV as they possibly could. And so it's a little bit wonky, but it's kind of a go and go and go again kind of schedule for that first round.
Okay. And then after that, it's single elimination for the rest of it?
Single elimination.
Okay. So that seems like they would be in okay shape if they got there and say they got to face, say they were able to climb a little bit more, got the 7 seed, get to play somebody who's not the Galaxy in the first round. That might give them a chance to advance a little bit further.
Yep. I think even if they do play the Galaxy, they played the Galaxy tough a couple of times this year. So I don't think there's any team that would come in and be like, the Twins playing the Yankees for so many years, where you just be like, well, I don't think I'm gonna watch this. I don't need to see this. But I think it's close enough in the Western Conference that even if they were to play the Galaxy, I don't think you can necessarily go, well, they got no hope in this one.
Surprising move by the Loons, playing Brian Dunsing up top.
The funny thing is there's a commentator who played in MLS named Brian Dunseth. It might have been Brian Dunsing. We should check. Nobody has ever checked on this, and we could be the first one.
Check his credentials. Before we wrap up, this has to be good news for them going forward, right? Because I think you explained to me the last time we talked, like they're making a lot of these moves, yes, for now, but they didn't expect everything to come together quickly. This is a lot of these moves, these transfer window moves were aimed at 2025 and beyond. So this has to give them a jump start and make them feel pretty good about the future as opposed to just the present.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you look at a guy like Yeboah and even Joaquin Pereira, who they brought in, they want to get younger and they want to have guys that are sort of in the prime of their careers. And they did that this summer. They will continue to do that in the winter. They're trying to set up sort of a core for a run, all the while knowing with soccer, it's a little bit different than it is in, for the Timberwolves or whatever, in that I think a lot of these guys would like to make an even bigger step up to, Spain, England, Germany, and one of the big leagues in Europe. And part of the thing that you can sell a guy that's coming in like Pereira from Argentina, or even Yeboah, who's been on loan in half the countries in Europe, is that this is a place to get noticed and to make the next step in your career. And so it's a little less exciting for the future than in other sports where you could look and say, these guys are all signed through 2027. The Loons are going to dominate the league for 3 years. It's a little bit more transient. So while I think they're set up for the future, I think there's a certain argument for also trying to enjoy things now a little bit, because everything can change pretty quickly in terms of where MLS is and sort of the hierarchy of leagues.
Loons play Wednesday. How important is that one in particular, with just 3 left in the regular season?
Yep, they got 2 road games this week. They're at Real Salt Lake on Wednesday. They're at Vancouver on Saturday, and I think both of those, especially the Vancouver one, is the proverbial 6-point game, as they always call it, the 6-pointer, because it'll swing the table either way depending on the results. But I think it's also a chance for Minnesota to prove they're for real a little bit. They had sort of gone through where this whole stretch, even going back to June, where the only teams they beat were the worst 3 teams in the Western Conference. And they went through a little bit of a weird stretch where they played Cincinnati at home and lost, but Eric Ramsey, the manager, was pretty high on how they played, and they really played them hard. And my reaction was, it's a little late in the season for moral victories, but that's how they felt. Then they beat Sporting Kansas City, again, one of the bad teams. And the manager said, well, they didn't play well. And I guess it's nice we got the result, but they didn't play very well. But it all kind of came together last Saturday because they beat Colorado. They dominated them. They won 3-0. And after the game, everybody said, I think that was our best performance of the year. So it feels a little bit like they're peaking at the right time. And now 2 road games against 2 teams in the Western Conference who are above them is a chance to prove that they're actually here and ready for the playoffs and not just, well, then maybe they'll make the play-in and hopefully get into the playoffs.
Sounds good. Well, we'll see how they fare in both those games. I'm sure Royce and I will have a lot to say about that on Monday's show next week.
I don't. Maybe you shouldn't tell him. Maybe, maybe just let it slide. It'll be fine.
He's just mad they didn't draft Angel Reese. All right, John. We'll talk to you later.
Later.
Great stuff from John. What a weird year for the Loons, right? Like they're up, they're down, they're all around, but it seems like they're maybe peaking at the right time. And it sounds simple, but playing your best as you're heading towards the playoffs is such a huge thing. Minnesota teams don't always do that. We've seen plenty of teams stumble in and get knocked out right away. This feels like a team that once they get in could be a factor based on how they are playing right now.
Watch your dreams and savings grow with Royal Credit Union's 4.25% annual percentage yield 12-month certificate. Open now at any Royal office or online at rcu.org/certificate saver. Early withdrawal penalties could reduce earnings and principal. APY accurate as of 2/1/25. Insured by NCUA.
And now back to the other kind of football. We're going back and forth between American football and the other kind of football that the rest of the world celebrates. Back to American football now.
Let's bring in Chip Scoggins, football across Minnesota, Star Tribune columnist. Like I said, the football across Minnesota feature every week, Star Tribune and StarTribune.com. Chip, how are you?
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. Thanks for being on again. Understand this week's FAM feature is on someone who we've known for a long time, Randy Shaver, and just everything that he's doing with high school sports right now.
Yeah, Randy is retired from KARE 11. He retired in June, at the end of June, after 41 years there as both a sports director and news anchor. But a lot of us associate Randy with high school football, and even in retirement, he hasn't slowed down with high school football. His devotion to it in multiple ways is still as strong as ever. I had a chance to hang out with Randy a couple weeks ago at the Battle of Lakeville, Lakeville South, Lakeville North. He does he has a podcast, a weekly podcast devoted to high school football. He's also doing a pregame studio show thing that they take on the road before a marquee matchup every weekend. They do it on the field there with, I think it's Game Time Media. And so I hung out with Randy there, and then we had to hustle up to East Ridge game because they were having a tackle cancer game where they raise money for a tackle cancer initiative that was created by Dave Nelson, Hall of Fame coach from both Blaine and Nantucket. Really to honor Randy and to raise money. And this has become a statewide initiative. They raise hundreds of thousands of dollars every year for cancer research and projects, over $3.5 million since 2012 when it first started. And so as I joked with Randy, as we were driving up 35 to get to the next high school football game, I was like, this is not what retirement looks like.
No.
And he said, no, it's just, he started that Prep Sports Extra show on KARE 11, the Friday night thing. They did it for 40 years. It's and amazing. Really was a pioneer and groundbreaking kind of show, because I don't know, it's hard to know, but he thinks probably one of the first TV stations in the country that had a Friday night show dedicated after the news to doing high school football highlights and scores, and did it for 40 years and became a passion and love of his, and really generations. I mean, 2 generations. There's dads that their kids now that he showed highlights of, really kind of tuned into that. They'd run home after their game to kind of see if KARE 11 had, a video crew at theirs, or if they talked about him. And so, he's 65 and he's still out there hustling, getting to high school football games and practices. During fall camp, he went to 6 different schools to see their teams in one day. Wow. Just to gather information. So, the lead will be on Randy, and kind of in retirement, he's still working hard to cover high school football.
That's cool, and it's got to be, gratifying for him. I'm curious, like in the beginning, did he see a need for this, or was this a passion from the beginning that he just loved high school football and wanted to shine a light on it?
He did love high school football, and he first started his career in Austin, Minnesota. Was there like a year and a half, and then he came up here. And really, KARE 11 at the time, they were the first TV station to extend their newscast 5 minutes to 10:35. They were trying to attract audience who were flipping over to Carson or whoever the late night, and they said, "Hey, with this extra 5 minutes, do you want to show some high school football on Friday night? Some high school football highlights," and it just kind of took off from there. And then it became a labor of love. He would stay there till 3 a.m. On Friday nights, just cataloging all the video that they have, so he could go back for it. And we tend to think in high school football players or coaches or who had a deep impact. I don't know that you'll find many people that's had the influence on high school football that Randy has had. When you talk about covering high school football and the shows, the interviews, the promotion, the platform he gave him for 40 years. And now you see it with the tackle cancer.
Yeah.
Pretty much every high school throughout the state is having a tackle cancer night where they raise money that goes to Randy's foundation. That they all of the money goes to cancer research, and these different doctors and scientists come in and they make a pitch to him, and one day there's like 45 of them, and they have a few minutes to say this is what their money's what they would use a grant for their research, and they choose which ones it goes to. So I mean, it's just amazing what that has become and the money it raised, and it's really it started because of his association with high school football.
That's fantastic. Everybody should go read that for sure. Before we go, Chip, game balls this week. A lot of candidates, I would think.
Yeah, a lot of candidates. Let's start with Chase Thompson, Alexandria quarterback. Alexandria is number one in their class in the state. He threw for 358 yards, 5 touchdowns passes, and he also rushed for 1 touchdown.
That's pretty
big
good.
Night for Chase. Yeah,
yes.
Jack Strand, MSU Moorhead quarterback. They throw the ball a lot. They trust Jack, and he threw the ball 67 times against Augustana.
What? Come on.
47 completions, 475 yards, and 5 touchdowns for a big win for Moorhead. Jack puts up big numbers. Okay. Yeah, I know. Yeah. And then this guy didn't have a huge statistical day, but I thought Justin Jefferson deserved a game ball. When that game got tight yesterday, they needed him to be a superstar, and he was. I thought the first down throw when it was 28-22, a 17-yarder, and then the great catch along the sideline on 3rd down. Yeah. That was, that's a highlight one. And I don't know, I think the throw was probably better on his touchdown catch in the second quarter by Sam Darnold. Kind of I described it as a Houdini trick, but he had a nice touchdown there in the second quarter. I think they gave him, was it 28-0 at that point or 21-0?
Yeah, it was part of building that big lead.
But they needed their superstar to be one to close out that game, and I thought Justin was.
Bounce back after shockingly dropping a pass or two the week before, too.
That is true. We don't see that too often.
No, we don't. All right, Chip, appreciate it. We'll do this again next week.
All right, Mikey. Thanks, man.
Cool story from Chip. Continue to love how he finds these different and unique tales to tell. Go read his piece on Randy Shaver. Definitely worth your time. And check out our video. We did a video, me and him talking about this story as well. Star Tribune's YouTube page. Check that out. Leave a comment, leave a rating, subscribe to the YouTube page. We would love to have you on board. Let's finish with the cooler. So many nice things being said and written about the Vikings. All of them deserved, but man, feels a little bit early for a victory lap. They're not taking, but NFL Twitter, the NFL's official site, put out playoff brackets if the season ended now. It's 4 games into a 17-game season. Yeah, the Vikings would be the 1 seed right now. They would get the bye. They're the only 4-0 team in the NFC. I get it, but man, feels a little bit early to put out if the season ended now. The season just started. Let's not give people these false kind of hopes, right? Like, I don't think it's a false hope to say this team is playing really well, but man, don't put out a playoff bracket when you're barely, less than 25% of the way into the season. Yeah, the Vikings have been dominant. Yeah, I saw that they're number 1 in DVOA a metric that measures kind of your overall strength of a team, and it's by a pretty significant margin. They have played great through 4 games. Long way to go. Long story short, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Let's see how the next 13 play out, even as you can certainly have way more optimism about this team than I thought you were going to be able to have. That will do it for me today. Like I said, Lavelle Eniel III coming up on Thursday's show, our daily delivery debate. Going to get into some Lynx, some Twins, and yeah, I think definitely some Timberwolves, Karl Anthony Towns trade talk on that episode. So stick around for that tomorrow. Until then, I'm Michael Rand. Have a great rest of your day. Back at it again on Thursday.